Have you ever wondered how many things in your life are going wrong, simply because you haven't been watching them? Not judging, not controlling, just watching, with awareness, with presence, with honesty. Think about it. How many habits are still destroying your peace because you never paused long enough to observe what they're really doing to you? How many patterns are repeating not because you're cursed, but because you're unconscious? How many people around you are shaping your thoughts, your emotions, your identity, and you're just letting it happen? Not because you're weak, but because you're unaware. This is how most people live, on autopilot. And the autopilot doesn't just keep you from growing. It quietly steers you towards slow self-sabotage. That's the part no one talks about. What you don't observe owns you. What you don't bring to light grows in the dark. The issue isn't always what's happening to you. The issue is often what you're not paying attention to. You think you're stuck? You're probably not stuck. You're probably just not observing differently yet. Because when your observation changes, reality changes. Not instantly, but inevitably. And this isn't about mystical thinking. It's about practical awareness. Awareness of your inner reactions, of the subtle emotions that steer your choices, of the way you speak to yourself without even realizing it, of the thoughts you feed, the fears you nurture, the ideas you allow to define your limits. So I'll ask you again, not as an expert, but as a friend. When was the last time you really watched yourself? Not to judge, just to see. Because the moment you start to see clearly, the system starts to shift. And when your perception shifts, so does the world around you. You're not here by accident. You're here because you're ready to observe differently. The observer effect isn't just a theory in physics, it's a mirror you've been avoiding. Let's step away for a moment from particles and equations. Let's talk about your life, not in the abstract, but in the small, quiet ways it unfolds every day. Have you noticed how some things only seem to fall apart when you're watching too closely, but others fall apart because you're not watching at all? In the quantum world, there's an experiment, the double slit, where light behaves differently when it's observed. When no one's watching, it spreads out, wave-like, in infinite possibility. But the moment observation enters, it collapses, it chooses. It behaves like a particle, definite, located, real. That's not just a physics trick. That's a metaphor for the way your attention functions in your life. What you observe becomes real. What you ignore becomes chaos. And here's the irony. Most of what's falling apart around you is happening in the dark corners of your perception, the places you've been too busy or too numb to look at. Maybe you've noticed how your relationships start to strain, not with loud arguments, but with small silences. Maybe your finances aren't spiraling because of a single catastrophic decision, but because of the unconscious pattern of avoidance that plays on repeat. Maybe the reason your dreams stay dreams isn't because the universe is against you, but because you've never really sat down to observe what part of you keeps pulling the emergency brake the moment progress begins. Observation, real observation, is an act of honesty. And honesty is a dangerous thing when you're trying to maintain the illusion that everything is fine. You see, observing something doesn't just reveal it, it changes it. That's what quantum physicists have been trying to say for decades without ever needing to use the word spiritual. That's what mystics have been pointing at with metaphors and silence and riddles. When you turn your attention towards something, truly, it reorganizes. But only always. It's not that the observer creates reality like a magician, it's that the observer participates in reality like a sculptor, hand on the chisel. It's not that your thoughts alone move the cosmos, it's that your consistent, honest, engaged observation alters the fabric of the pattern you've been unconsciously weaving. It alters what you tolerate, what you energize, what you choose. And this matters more than you think, because the things you haven't been observing, they're running scripts in the background. Thoughts you didn't question, feelings you've normalized, actions you repeat like rituals in a church you forgot you joined. You've been offering attention, not consciously but habitually. And attention is currency, attention is fuel. Attention is the vote you cast for what gets to stay in your life. So what are you voting for? What are you feeding with your gaze, even if it's subtle, even if it's fearful? And what have you turned away from that desperately needs the light of your presence to reorganize? Here's the thing. When you change the way you observe, you don't just change what you see, you change the nature of the thing itself. In psychology, this is known too. Clients often change the moment they hear their own story out loud. Their life, spoken, reflected, held, shifts. The moment it becomes seen, it begins to become something else. A wound becomes a narrative, a habit becomes a choice, a fear becomes a signal, not a sentence. You're not broken, you're just unobserved in the places that matter most. You don't need to fix everything. You need to begin watching, truly watching, with kindness and clarity. Like the scientist who doesn't demand results, only gathers data with a reverent curiosity. Like the artist who studies the light before picking up the brush. Like the child who notices a single ant crawling across the sidewalk and wonders where it's going. If you start observing your own inner world that way, not with force, not with judgment, but with interest, you'll notice something. Your reality starts to reorganize itself around the shift. People show up differently, ideas arrive, doors crack open. Not because of magic, but because you stopped being blind to the levers you were pulling unconsciously. You began to see, and what you see changes. So don't just think about the observer effect as a theory in physics. Live it as a principle of awakening. Begin with the smallest thing, the emotion you've been pushing away, the thought that repeats itself when no one is around, the habit that you no longer want to carry. Sit with it, watch it, don't solve it, just see it, and trust that something invisible will begin to shift, because it will. It always does. Consciousness is not a passenger in your life. It's the driver you've forgotten to notice. Most people imagine their awareness as a camera recording what happens, a spectator behind the eyes, quietly witnessing the world unfold. But that's not what consciousness is. Consciousness isn't passive, it's participatory. It's the invisible hand shaping what it sees. The act of observing, the act of noticing, doesn't just record reality, it generates it. Your attention isn't a flashlight shining on a pre-existing stage. It's electricity wiring the stage into being. Wherever you place it, something turns on. Wherever you withdraw it, something fades. Science, in its cold precision, stumbled on this truth long before the rest of us were ready to hear it. The physicist John Wheeler called it the participatory universe, a cosmos that requires observation to come alive. Information becomes reality the moment it is processed by awareness. The same principle operates inside you. Your thoughts, your emotions, your relationships, they don't exist independently of the awareness that holds them. They shift the moment you see them clearly, as if they were waiting for you to finally look. The observer effect is not confined to photons and electrons. It plays out in every conversation you have, in every memory you revisit, in every decision you hesitate to make. The world around you and the world within you are not separate systems. They are synchronized processes of observation and response. If that sounds abstract, think of a simple moment. You wake up. Your body feels heavy. You think, today will be hard. Instantly, your nervous system tightens, your vision narrows, and your body organizes itself around that observation. You have not described reality, you have generated it, and the same works in the opposite direction. When you choose to notice the sunlight touching the wall, the breath entering your chest, the slight hum of life around you, you've tuned to a different field. Your physiology changes. Your possibilities multiply. You didn't make it happen. You witnessed it differently. Observation, not effort, shifted the field. This is why awareness is the most radical form of power. It doesn't manipulate, it reconfigures. Every transformation begins as an act of noticing what was always there, but hidden beneath the noise. The noise of comparison, distraction, anxiety, the endless background hum of thoughts that pretend to be you. But you're not the noise. You're the space it happens in, the witness, the canvas, the awareness itself. And when you start to live from that awareness, everything else begins to reorganize around it. Situations don't instantly change, but the quality of your perception does. And that's the first tremor of transformation. Your consciousness is constantly measuring, interacting, influencing. You may not see it, but you feel it in those moments when life feels strangely responsive, when your thoughts seem to echo in the outer world, when coincidences stack too precisely to be random, when intuition whispers before logic can speak. Those are not anomalies. They are glimpses of a larger structure where mind and matter are not two. You don't need to force this connection. You only need to remember it. Because when you do, something profound happens. Your awareness begins to act like gravity, pulling coherent experiences into your orbit, not through demand, but through resonance. So pay attention to where your attention goes. It's not just observing your life, it's designing it. What you focus on becomes the pattern your brain repeats, the lens your emotions follow, the signal the field amplifies. You've been doing this unconsciously for years, shaping realities by accident. Now the invitation is to do it on purpose, to watch differently, to think with your senses, to feel with your mind. Because once you realize that consciousness participates in every atom of your existence, the separation between you and life begins to dissolve. There is only awareness observing itself, endlessly, creatively, beautifully. Most people fail at manifestation, not because they're doing it wrong, but because they're doing it backwards. They try to attract what they want by obsessing over it, repeating it, visualizing it, scripting it, affirming it like a mantra held in desperation. But the truth is this: the very energy of trying is the same frequency that keeps what you want just out of reach. Trying is a subtle declaration that you do not yet have. Wanting is built on the premise of lack. And lack never invites abundance. It repels it. Like a magnet flipped the wrong way. You've probably been taught that you need to think positive, stay high vibe, or focus harder to manifest your desires. But what if I told you the real key is not forcing alignment, but relaxing into the awareness that what you desire already exists and has always existed in a timeline that's waiting for you to notice it? What if all your work has been keeping you from the only thing that matters, remembering that what you seek is already seeking you? This isn't about belief, it's about resonance. You don't manifest by hoping something appears. You manifest by becoming the version of yourself who would already be living that experience, not in theory, not as a performance, but as a nervous system reality. That's where most teachings stop short, because this isn't just about thought, it's about embodiment. It's about identity. Let's break this down. If you're constantly thinking, I want this, you're reinforcing the self that does not have. Every affirmation from that identity loops back into lack, even if it sounds empowering. That's why you can visualize for hours and still feel anxious, because your nervous system isn't fooled. It knows the difference between pretending and knowing, between forcing and allowing, between affirming and being. So here's the reversal. Stop trying to bring the desire to your current identity. Start shifting your identity to match the timeline where the desire is already normal. That's not spiritual bypassing, that's neurological coherence. Your brain can't tell the difference between a vividly imagined experience and a real one, unless you sabotage it with resistance. So the task is not to convince the universe. The task is to stop contradicting your own signal. You don't manifest by wanting a better job. You manifest by becoming someone who wakes up feeling already aligned with purpose and value. You don't manifest love by craving it. You manifest love by becoming the version of you who trusts they are lovable. Because that version behaves differently. They speak differently, they notice different things. They walk into rooms differently. And the field around them reorganizes accordingly. Reverse manifestation isn't a technique. It's a realization that your current state is already manifesting something, always. So the only real shift is in asking, what identity am I manifesting from? If it's the identity of the struggler, the doubter, the one who's waiting, then the manifestation will continue to reflect that waiting. But if you shift into the identity of the one who remembers, not hopes, not begs, but remembers, then the frequency becomes clear. Your action becomes inspired, your energy becomes magnetic, and manifestation ceases to be something you do. It becomes who you are. Stop asking, why hasn't it happened yet? Start asking, who am I being that keeps pushing it away? Then listen, deeply, because the answer will come, not as a voice, but as a feeling, a knowing, a shift. The moment you stop striving and start receiving, you'll see it clearly. Reality was never withholding anything. You were just observing from the wrong version of yourself. Your timeline isn't fixed, it's fluid, and your emotional frequency is the steering wheel. The life you're living right now is not the only one available to you. It's simply the one you've locked into through a specific combination of identity, belief, and emotional tone. That's the piece most people miss. It's not just your choices that determine your reality. It's the emotional signature behind those choices that collapses one timeline over another. You've heard of phase locking in physics, when two oscillating systems sync frequencies and begin to operate as one. That's not just a concept reserved for machinery or subatomic fields. That's you and your life. When your internal state, your thoughts, your feelings, your expectations, begin to phase lock with a future version of you who already lives your desires, the shift becomes inevitable. Not because you forced it, but because resonance does what resonance does. It aligns, it synchronizes, it reorganizes what seemed immovable. But here's what you need to know. Phase locking isn't always peaceful. In fact, it often starts with turbulence, because when your current identity begins to merge with a higher frequency version of yourself, all the unresolved parts of you, the fears, the doubts, the self-sabotaging reflexes, start to shake. Not because you're failing, but because the old system is destabilizing. The discomfort you feel in those moments isn't evidence that you're doing it wrong. It's confirmation that you're shifting. Think of water turning to ice. It doesn't happen gradually. It builds quietly and visibly until a threshold is reached, and then suddenly a phase transition, a snap, a new structure emerges. That's how consciousness works too. You may be doing the inner work, meditating, healing, observing your thoughts, shifting your reactions, and feel like nothing is happening. But energy builds, alignment builds, and then, when your system reaches critical mass, everything begins to crystallize. This is why you must stop measuring progress by what you can see. In the quantum field, visibility comes last. Before there's evidence, there's alignment. Before there's manifestation, there's frequency collapse. And the field is always listening, not to your words, but to your signal. That signal is not your vision board. It's your dominant state of being. The emotions you allow most often, the thoughts you choose to empower, the identity you wake up into every morning. So ask yourself, what am I phase-locked with today? Am I synced with the version of me that feels rushed, panicked, reactive? Or am I syncing with the version of me who walks in awareness, who trusts timing, who doesn't flinch every time the world doesn't reflect back what I want? Phase locking is not perfection, it's persistence. It's choosing over and over again to bring your nervous system back into alignment with the reality you actually want to live, even when the evidence isn't there yet, especially then. Because reality doesn't bend to force, it bends to coherence. And coherence isn't created in the moments you feel certain. It's forged in the moments you choose clarity in the middle of chaos. So next time something triggers you, pause. Ask, which timeline does this emotion lock me into? If the answer doesn't reflect the version of your life you want, then don't feed it. Observe it, breathe through it, and gently shift your attention to the feeling that would be normal if your manifestation were already here. Not because it's fake, but because you're tuning your system into what's already real, just not yet stable in your perception. That's how timelines collapse. Not by effort, but by frequency alignment. And once the shift occurs, you won't need proof. You'll feel it in your bones. The void you feel right before something changes is not emptiness, it's incubation. You know the moment, the pause, the silence, that strange feeling where everything seems still, suspended, maybe even dead. Your manifestations seem stalled. Your mind starts spinning stories. Nothing is happening. It's not working. I must be doing something wrong. But here's the deeper truth. The void is not punishment. It's preparation. And if you misinterpret it, you'll abandon everything just before it matures. In quantum physics, there's a space known as the zero-point field, a vacuum teeming with potential. From the outside, it looks like nothing. But on a deeper level, it contains the raw material for everything. That's what the void is. Not lack, not failure, but the most potent condition for emergence. It's the sacred pause before manifestation stabilizes. And it's one of the most misunderstood stages of transformation. Most people give up in the void because they've been conditioned to expect noise as evidence, movement as proof. But nature doesn't work that way. A seed in soil doesn't sprout the day after it's planted. It disappears, it decomposes, and in that decomposition it becomes ready. The same thing happens to you. Before your reality shifts, your old patterns soften, your old identities dissolve, and the outer world often goes quiet. Not because it's ignoring you, but because it's reconfiguring itself around the new signal you've been emitting. Subtly, invisibly, precisely, and the signal you send in the void is everything. When you feel like nothing is happening, your nervous system reverts to survival mode. It wants proof. It craves certainty. But if you chase external validation in that moment, by checking your bank account, looking for signs, refreshing the results, you interrupt the process. You collapse the timeline too early. You pull the cake out of the oven before it rises. And then you call it failure when really it was just impatience. This is where emotional maturity becomes essential. Can you hold space for what hasn't yet arrived? Can you be the container for something that hasn't taken form? That's what true manifestation demands. Not just intention, not just visualization, but trust. Trust in the unseen layers of reality that don't follow the logic of time but the logic of resonance. Trust that your energy has already spoken and the universe is responding, even if the response is still ripening. This void isn't your enemy. It's the womb of your new timeline. You are not in limbo. You are gestating a new structure of being. And just like birth, it's messy, it's silent, and it doesn't happen on your schedule. It happens when coherence has been reached, between your inner alignment and the readiness of the field. So when you find yourself in the void, do this. Stop asking, where is it? And start asking, who am I becoming while I wait? Because the answer to that question is what determines whether your next reality arrives as a miracle or as another missed opportunity. Stay, breathe, observe without need. This is not the moment to act. It's the moment to listen. It's the moment to refine your signal, not to broadcast panic. It's the moment to become the version of you who no longer doubts when life gets quiet, but smiles, knowing that silence is the last sound before breakthrough. You've been here before, and every time you've stayed long enough, something came through. The void isn't new, but maybe your response to it can be. You are not just becoming someone. You are remembering someone you already are. That sudden flash of insight, that moment where clarity crashes in like lightning, as if an answer you didn't know you had was waiting for you all along, that wasn't random. That was entanglement. In quantum physics, entanglement means two particles, once connected, remain linked, even when separated by vast distances. What affects one affects the other instantaneously. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. But what if it's not spooky at all? What if it's the fundamental architecture of your transformation? Because you, the version of you watching this, the version of you questioning everything, are not alone in your journey. There is another you, one that already lives in alignment, one that already knows. Call it your higher self, your quantum double, your future identity. In the entangled web of consciousness, you are linked across time to every possibility you've ever imagined. And when you begin to observe differently, when you shift your focus, your belief, your emotional resonance, you don't just change how you feel, you activate the connection to a version of yourself who's already there. That's when the downloads come. You felt it before, that sudden shift in perspective, that intuitive knowing, that feeling of, I've heard this before, even when it's brand new. Those aren't hallucinations. Those are entangled transmissions, and they arrive when the emotional frequency of your present self aligns with the frequency of your expanded self. It's like tuning into a station. If you're on the wrong frequency, all you hear is static, confusion, noise, doubt. But the moment you adjust, the signal comes through. Clear, familiar, transformational. That signal is a conversation between who you are and who you're becoming, but not in a linear sense, in a non-local one. There is no distance. There is no later. There is only now and the self that exists beyond what you've allowed yourself to embody. Neuroscience backs this up in ways that sound like metaphysics. Every time you imagine a new version of yourself, your brain begins to build the neural architecture for it through Hebbian learning, through plasticity, through default mode network rewiring. But it goes deeper. When you emotionally connect with a possibility, your nervous system codes it as real. And the brain doesn't distinguish between now and future. It only distinguishes between coherent and incoherent energy states. So, if you want to shift your life, stop trying to force external outcomes. Start tuning in. Start asking, what is the me I'm already entangled with trying to say? Because here's the truth that science and spirit agree on. Consciousness is not limited to the brain. It is non-local. It's an informational field. And the more coherent your attention becomes, the more clearly you pick up the data streaming from your next level self. That's why stillness matters. That's why silence isn't empty. It's in the spaces between thought where the signal comes through. Not because you're doing more, but because you're listening more. And the answer to the question, can I manifest by shifting observation, is yes, but not in the way you've been taught. You don't observe in order to get something. You observe in order to collapse into resonance with the version of you that's already living it. That's when the bridge appears, not as a roadmap, but as a realization. You are the roadmap. You've always been the key. Your life isn't just unfolding, it's echoing. And every time you feel a nudge, a whisper, a vision, that's not your imagination. That's identity entanglement. That's you answering your own question from the other side. What if I told you that every miracle you've ever prayed for already has a blueprint in your brain, not a metaphor, a literal map, a structure waiting to be built or rebuilt, depending on how you think, feel, and focus? You see, your brain isn't static. It's not a fixed machine or a final version of you downloaded at birth. It's a living sculpture, a biological galaxy of neurons and pathways that are constantly rewiring based on experience, attention, and repetition. This is neuroplasticity, and it's not just science, it's sacred, because it means you are not condemned to repeat. You are not stuck. You are not just this way. You are rewritable. So let's talk manifestation. Most people think manifestation is about repeating affirmations, visualizing outcomes, and waiting for the universe to deliver. And while there's power in thought and intention, none of it works if the architecture of your mind hasn't been changed. Your brain at the end of the day is a prediction machine. It doesn't create what you want. It recreates what it expects. And expectations are built from neurons, from history, from what you've repeated enough times to turn into identity. So here's the key. You don't manifest what you think about once. You manifest what your nervous system accepts as familiar. That's why you have to go deeper than positive thinking. That's why your environment changes and your habits don't. That's why you say you want abundance, but your body still panics when the bill comes. Your subconscious hasn't caught up. Your neural wiring is still rehearsing scarcity, lack, rejection, because those were the songs played on loop in your formative years. And repetition builds reality. But here's the miracle. The moment you vividly imagine a different outcome, your brain begins to change. When you see it, feel it, rehearse it, even internally, the neurons respond. The synapses begin to fire in new patterns. And if you repeat this consistently, your brain will physically rewire itself to treat that imagined reality as real. That's not mystical thinking. That's Hebbian theory. Neurons that fire together, wire together. And here's where it gets quantum. The observer effect in physics shows us that the act of observation changes the behavior of particles. In your brain, the act of observing a new possibility with enough emotional charge changes the behavior of your biology. The wave collapses into form. The potential becomes a neural pathway. A new prediction is formed, and because your brain is linked to every system in your body, your endocrine system, your immune system, your heart rhythms, your emotional state, the shift cascades. Suddenly, you start behaving like someone who's already in alignment with the thing you used to chase, not because it arrived, but because you did. And then the external world follows, slowly at first, subtly, but then undeniably. This is why miracles are not interruptions of natural law, they are natural law, functioning through the medium of a mind that has remembered how to use it. The spiritual becomes biological, the metaphysical becomes chemical, the divine intelligence becomes rewiring. So if you've been waiting for your life to change, don't wait harder. Rehearse the change, with precision, with emotion, with presence. Because the moment you imagine it vividly, your brain begins to build it. And once your brain accepts the new reality, your world has no choice but to catch up. Where you place your attention is where you place your life. And this isn't just philosophy, it's physics. Every moment of your existence is surrounded by countless possible futures. Not one, many. There are futures in which you rise and futures in which you shrink. Futures where you are healed, where you are powerful, where you are connected to something deeper. And there are futures where everything stays the same, painfully familiar, but predictable, safe, numb, silent. What decides which one becomes real? Your attention. You are the observer. You are the selector of timelines. And the act of observation, conscious, sustained, emotionally charged, is what crystallizes the wave into a particle. The fog of possibility collapses into one path, one outcome, one reality. And it happens not by force, but by focus. The mistake most people make is believing that change requires dramatic action. A new job, a new partner, a new location. But the true shift always starts internally. Change your attention, and the architecture of reality begins to bend around your focus. Not immediately, but subtly, and then undeniably. Let's bring in the science. Your reticular activating system, the RAS, is a network of neurons in your brainstem that acts as a filter for information. Right now, your senses are processing over 11 million bits of data per second, but your conscious mind can only handle about 50. So the RAS decides what makes it through. What you notice, what you recognize, what becomes part of your story, and how does it decide based on what you've been paying attention to, what you've labeled as important, whether consciously or unconsciously. So if you constantly focus on fear, failure, rejection, your RAS will begin to filter reality through that lens. You'll start seeing more reasons to worry, more evidence that you're not enough, more proof that nothing changes. But if you shift your attention, deliberately, consistently, toward possibility, toward beauty, toward what could go right instead of what could go wrong, the filter changes. You begin to notice people, ideas, opportunities that were always there, but hidden behind your old programming. You start walking into rooms differently, speaking differently, making decisions that reflect who you're becoming, not who you've been. And slowly a different future begins to unfold, because what you attend to, you animate. Your attention is a vote, a frequency, a command to the quantum field. This is what I value. This is who I am. This is the timeline I'm choosing. And the field responds, not as a genie, but as a mirror, not to what you hope for, but to what you focus on. So I'll ask you this, as we near the end of this journey, where is your attention right now? Not in theory, not in your vision board, but in the small, invisible moments of your daily life. Because your future isn't something you step into, it's something you allow your awareness to crystallize. You're not waiting for the universe to shift. The universe is waiting for you to look.